Hey, thanks for joining us for the Rethink and Return podcast. We do this a couple times a week, generally on a passage of scripture, and then once, usually on aspects of leadership. Sometimes I got good buddies that drop into town, or they'll sit at this table, and we'll have a good talk about being a leader. And sometimes I just got a good buddy who I work with who'll sit at the table with me. Thanks,
That's
Dave,
right.
for doing that.
Great to be here.
Dave and I have been friends a long time, and we've served together a long time. But even when we weren't serving together, you were serving in different ways in different places, and so have I been.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of the guys, the center of our target, definitely not the only people who listen or the only people we want to, but the center of the target when I talk on these, I'm thinking about early 30-something-year-old pastor who's just getting started or at a scaling or growing or thinking about quitting, whatever. So that's sort of my heart. I spend a lot of time one-on-one with pastors like this, you know, and so that's who I'm thinking about a lot. And today I think we're going to talk about this idea of like scaling, the different sizes and seasons of an organization,
Right,
and the growth necessary for it. So when I talk about scaling, I talk about a different size and a different season, and the changes that need to be made in order to support every size, season, and stage.
Yeah.
I like to say it's one thing to start something, it's another thing to stay. It's one thing to
Right.
start, it's another thing to sustain. And starting is hard, staying is even harder, scaling is even harder. And some people stay, but they don't have to scale because something never grows. But for those people who start something and stay and scale, well, that's different. There are different skill sets required,
Right.
Different obstacles along the way, different light points and shadow points, different fun things and hard things for all of it. Some people stay and don't scale, but it's not because they don't have gifts. It's the environment that they're in, the place where they are, whatever. And so, but I do want to today talk about, I mean, even people in business that I know, good friends of mine, we have some of the same conversations about some of the things because we're talking about people, like movements of people. Sizes really have to do with people movement more than anything else, I think. One of the things when people talk about scaling that I don't hear talked about often, we talk about organizational adjustments, we talk about calendar and time adjustments, we talk about skill sets and hiring adjustments. All these things are part of scaling. But one thing that I rarely, if ever, hear talked about in scaling is how communication scales, how communication adjusts at different sizes and seasons and stages. So let me set this up, and then we'll start talking. So I started a church, but before that, I worked in churches and maybe a couple of little organizations, mainly churches, different sizes. And I had to learn different skill sets. And then within each of those churches, I had to learn how to communicate to an individual, to a small group of people, and then to the masses. Some masses were bigger than others. I started Church Project. Even my public speaking was not to the masses. It was to a very small group of people because we didn't have many people. But I had one-on-one conversations and small group, and my large group was still small. Then large group became medium. Then large group became large. Then large group became extra large. Some people have extra, extra, extra large. But, I mean, we're speaking of large rooms now. That's me. I've had to learn how to write differently, how to speak differently, how I'm perceived differently, the things that I understand now differently. That's me. You've spoken in small, medium, large, extra large, and extra, extra large rooms for decades.
Right.
To maybe, I don't know, 1 million people or more.
Probably.
And so you've also had to learn how to communicate through writing. And when you started, the way that you communicated kept adjusting and growing. So I think we could talk about how we grow in our communication, but that's another conversation.
Right.
What we're talking about here is scaling for the different size, seasons, and stage. I'd work for a small business owner, to a medium, to a large business owner. I'd work for a church. When we're talking about this, what comes to mind for you so far? Questions, thoughts?
Yeah, I think the question where I'd want to start this conversation for both of us is back in the Timberlock days, like it was just you, and you got to figure out how you're going to communicate something that most people in this area had never thought about.
Okay.
I like that. That's what, like, what were those early challenges? What what were the things you had to do? Like, okay, you're like, we're going to start church project. We don't have a name. We'll just go with this. We got a warehouse, and I have myself and Brooke, and some people are going to come that are interested. So, like, where did that start? How did you communicate that vision when no one else saw it?
Well, that's a great question. I've thought about it a little bit. I have said this to help answer that question, but I haven't developed it out a whole lot. But I had to use a lot of words when I began that. Now I need to use less words because there is a living picture of it now, where before it was a future idea. And so when you're starting something, you're having to, with words, paint a future idea, like a picture in someone's mind. But now, people can see it. There's history, there's mass, there's activity. And so now I have things that explain themselves.
Right.
But early on, I think that's one of the hard things of starting something, is that people who may be great communicators, maybe they're great communicators from the stage. Maybe they've written books, maybe they whatever. But when you're starting something, you're painting a picture with words in a way that people have to choose to believe. And it's a lot of risk. I mean, I think it's wild that anybody would go to a church plant, right? Like, I like to say there are very few pioneers. Like, I mean, for me, we have some pioneers that are here. Like today, our leadership team, right? We're all doing our monthly, like, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what we're working on. And one of our leadership team people was like, here's a picture of something this week that happened. And it was a picture of a girl now in college who was just, she was like 3 or 4 when her family came here. They came very early on, like day 2, to our church. I had never met them before. And they got a picture of what we were hoping to become, and like they're still here for it. Incredible people. Wow. But it's wild for somebody to bring their wife, their husband, their kids, their giving, their spiritual gifts, entrust their spiritual development into this community of people that they're going to serve with. That's a wild thing. And it takes words to help them understand what we're going to be doing if it ever happens.
Right. And so did you find when you were doing that, did you do a lot of church projects is like, or imagine if, like, how a lot of communication comes when you have to paint a picture and with a lot of words. Was there a lot of that? Was a lot of like what you're saying? Yeah. It's like this, or imagine if this church becomes like what? Do you remember those early days of what you had to do in those moments to really paint that picture?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly made a deliberate decision to not use words that cast vision. Okay. I only used words that shared values. And I think that's a distinct difference for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like they are choosing words that cast vision. But for me, I chose words that cast value because I wanted words that would be true of us. In fact, I wrote it in a book very early on that I'm like, I didn't know if we would be 40 people or 400 or 4,000. I mean, I never actually thought we'd be 4,000 people, but we became that and more. But I wanted values that would work for 40 people.
Yeah.
Or 400 people or 4,000. So then people are attracted to the value. Like, for example, I said church project is biblical and simple and relevant. Then I used words to explain what it meant to be biblical. We're going to preach through the scriptures together, verse by verse. Our kids are going to memorize verses of scripture every Sunday. We're going to have communities based on like legit looking into the scriptures together. Like our conversation will be built around that, not some book or some topic or just friendship, but deep in the word together. Like, so when I said biblical, that was a value that worked for all 40 of us. People couldn't be like, we're not biblical. Yeah, we are. Or when I said simple, people knew, well, this is simple. And now when they come here, our building, it's our third building.
Right.
That we borrow on Sundays and share with our community throughout the week, but it's still simple. We hear that word all the time, and we heard it from the very beginning. Or relevant, meaning understandable. Like we have people who They've never been in church. They have no idea churchy words. And then we have like theologians and seminary professors and other things, and they all work together here. Like early on, we said we're going to be biblical, simple, relevant, like Jesus could speak to a priest and a prostitute on the same day and be understood. Mm-hmm. So that's what relevant meant to us, understandable to all. We're not going to exclude anybody by our practices or our words, you know? And so I think it's very important the direction you choose, because your words are going to have to line up in that approach, right? Like if I went after a vision, my vision would have been like, we're going to reach our city with their gospel and plant a church in every neighborhood. Like, and then people would have been like, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Like year 3, they would have been like, that's not going to happen. So they could have tired of hanging on for a hopeful future vision. Now we say we want a church in every neighborhood. And that's how our language is even scaled.
Wow.
Because now, like, I think we have a church in most neighborhoods, and we will have a church, I think, in every or almost every neighborhood. We have many neighborhoods with many house churches. So I think that's how you scale along the way. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think that's right. My instincts say that I think it's a radical thing to lead with values. I hope that the people, we have business leaders and bosses listening, that they think about the difference between leading with values or vision.
Yeah.
And like when I read a lot of churches, mission statements, they're all vision. It's reaching the globe and the world and beyond and going after all nations. It's all these big things that could never possibly happen from some little First Baptist bucktooth somewhere, And so I think the idea of leading with vision. So as you grew, like you grew exponentially early on, and so as you grew, what changed in your communication from the platform? I mean, did this impact the way that you communicated Scripture? Did you communicate values or vision when you taught Scripture?
Oh, I believe that we revealed the values as we were teaching Scripture, and then sometimes there'd be vision, like, hey, God calls us to go around the world.
Right.
We gotta go somewhere in the world.
That's right.
He calls us to serve our neighbor. We got to make sure we're doing that. And so, I mean, that would be leaked all throughout Scripture, of course. But I mean, when I did grow, go ahead.
Yeah, no, this makes me think of how you communicated the ecclesiology. I know that, like early on, were you doing the ecclesiology on Sunday? Were you doing, we're a church, we're a project?
Our host time every week.
Yeah, the host time, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, so like early on in the Life of Church project, well, every week I did it.
Right.
And I'll say something about communication. In fact, somebody here who used to work at Exxon in a senior level management role told me, hey, the way you do that here reminds me of how our CEO communicates, because he says his role is to constantly just remind people of who we are and who we're not.
Yeah.
And then I think when we get into organizational conversations later, I think that's the leader's role, and then to hire people that do that. And then the next level of leadership role is to make sure that the people who work for them are helping make that happen. And so my job was to come up with the language that would help give clarity.
Right.
And so like I developed language, and I used the same language every week.
Right.
One of the reasons I use the same language every week is because I believed that I found the best language to express what we were trying to express. Like I tried to reduce and refine all the words, all the ideas out there into phrases that I felt like would give a picture. Because you're right, like if you're planting a new concept, most churches are not a new concept.
Right.
But we were planting a new church and a new concept, at least at that time, for our city and the surrounding areas. I mean, I wish that somebody in Houston and Texas that I could find was a church of house churches. I would have learned from them. I would have gone to their workshops or conferences or bought their books, but there wasn't anybody that I could find. And so I had to create some language. And now actually there are people all over that are using some of those phrases.
Right, that's right.
Or sentences or paragraphs,
And ripping them off and posting them on Instagram.
Well, they are, but I mean, or we'll say, hey, we created them because we believe in this, and we're glad that you're using it, And so I think I wanted to create phrases that people would remember that, gave clarity to what we were trying to do. And then I just repeated those phrases every week. And I did that so that other people would repeat them. And so now I bet anyone who's been in our church for any extended period of time could literally say what I say every week. But I think they get it because they know, oh, when I first came here, him saying it that way was for me. But now he's saying it for the other new person who's here.
Yeah.
I mean, I got it.
Right.
But now, I mean, people could say it in their sleep. But after it became like part of our culture, then I let go of it and I let other people share it.
Yeah.
And I think part of scaling is being willing to be the one to fashion the words and say them over and over until it becomes part of your culture. Once it's embedded in your culture, then you can let go of it a little bit more.
Right. Because it's morphed over time. Our host time and what we say, like it hasn't departed from the vision, but the words have changed and somewhat.
We keep adjusting, we keep refining them little by little. I've kept refining them, of course. Like as we start to practice something, I'm like, there's a slight adjustment to this.
There's a nuance, yeah.
And as I communicate it, I'm like, oh, people will understand it better if we say it this way. But it was still my job to refine that language, capture that language over and over and over. And if somebody else contributed to it, and I'm like, that's good, we could adopt that, but I had to be the gatekeeper of it.
Right.
And the primary communicator of it. And now I rarely do that, but I make sure, I mean, we have a process to make sure that everybody is doing the same thing. And we really still protect words. Like, even though we've grown and we're still using the same words that people understand, like if somebody wants to make an adjustment, like suggestions come in often of adjustments to words. And so we'll wrestle through that.
Right.
And sometimes we'll say that is a better way to say that. Like one of our axioms, we'll do another thing about axioms at some point, but one of our axioms was the last best thing we need to do.
Right.
Like maybe that was on our axiom podcast before. I don't remember all the ones we did. But I mean, one of our axioms was what we're doing now is the last best thing. What we're saying now was the last best way we need to say it.
That's right.
We may become aware of a better way to say something, and we'll make that adjustment.
I mean, talk about, we've been working together. We've known each other for 25 years or more. We've been working together 12 years or more. And I kind of have an instinct of how you do it, but talk to someone who maybe is starting something new, and you talk about crafting words that communicate vision. How do you come up with a sentence? How do you craft? I want to nerd out on this for a minute. Like it's just you and your phone or a piece of paper, and you're like, I want to communicate this about Church Project. How do you craft a sentence that can be communicated to listeners? What's your process? How do you think through that? Like what's the way that how do you get there? Yeah, I know you have to start with an idea. Right? You start with a desire and an idea, but then you have to get it, or you talk about, like I've watched you choose words in terms of stuff that we made. I want people to hear a little bit about how your mind works when you do that.
Yeah. All right, let's use the phrase Church of House Churches.
Okay.
I'd never heard that before. And I have this idea that had been developing in me for years about Church Project. So this idea of a church, I've been living in for 10, 15 years, I didn't have any words, like I didn't have nomenclature, but I had like principles and ideas. And so as I started really meditating on these principles, and then at some point when I realized I'm going to be able to put these principles into practice, that's when the urgency came to put words to this. Because an idea doesn't matter if people don't adopt it.
Right.
I mean, here's
that should be a new axiom.
Well, let's coin it now. An idea doesn't matter if people don't adopt it. I'm not saying the idea doesn't have value, but it doesn't have impact if people don't adopt it. So there's an inventor in our church. He and I were having coffee some time ago. And I said, hey, this guy's invented stuff that we've all used and heard of. And he's doing all right for himself, Yeah. He's having a good time. He's a great guy. And I told him, I said, hey, man, I know a lot of guys who, they think that their idea has value. They get mad if somebody else has the same idea. Or if even somebody took a conversation of idea and then implemented it. And I said, what do you think about that? He said, an idea is just deciding what mountain to climb. It's just the bottom.
Wow.
The idea is the bottom. Being able to put the idea into practice and adoption and implementation, well, that's the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And so for me, what value does my idea have of this kind of a church if people aren't living in it in our city and other cities? And so I have all these principles, convictions, frustrations, values. Mm-hmm. But if they're going to be practiced, it's my responsibility to take all of that and put it into words. Because words are, we can go back to the beginning of Genesis and see how powerful words are.
Right.
So words are super powerful. And so to take ideas and put them into words that people can adopt. So some people can take it, some people have incredible ideas, better than mine. And maybe some people can take ideas and then put them into words. But then the real combustion is you have these incredible, true, pure ideas that you can put into really refined, usable words. And then you know how to build an organization, a culture, a context where people can practice these words that express these values. But a lot of people are like, well, I have these incredible ideas. Yeah, but they're not giving any value to anybody unless you can put language around it that make people understand it so that they can practice it. So I like to tell people, don't start something until you believe that you not only you have these values, but you can get words, and then you can give people a context to practice these words. Because we have a lot of people who have stopped. I had great ideas. They're right. They're true. They're good. I put right words around those ideas, but they don't know how to lead a context. They don't know how to create a place, a people, a context. Their creation of a context is not sustainable. It's not scalable. It can't grow. And so, the real combustion is people who can take this idea, put words around it. So for me, I've been sitting on ideas for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And then I know I'm about to start something. So now I have a real responsibility to say some words that I'm going to invite people to, because I want these ideas to have value in people's lives. And so that's where the phrase, so then I look around, do other people share these same ideas? And do they have any words? And I couldn't find that at all.
Yeah.
So I had to come up with words. The words came out of conviction, biblical conviction, personal conviction, values that I had, frustrations. The words came out of a lot of work. The words just came out of a lot of work. And so now I can say a phrase like a church of house churches. And people will be like, I think I get it. And I can make one sub-sentence, and they're one church made up of many house churches.
Right.
And then they're like, okay. We're one connected church made up of many house churches. But the tagline, now it's identifiable. So somebody would say a church of house churches, even if they're not a church project. That's why I started to trademark it, and then I pulled it back, but now it's a service mark because I want to share it with everybody,
Right.
So it's a church of house churches. But so I've done that, with all kinds of language. I had a 7-minute start, and then in a conversation with Brian here, he was, start was 7. I was 7-minute start, and start was 7, and then and it worked better because it had the action first, right? And so, I will invite people in. So it's my
So good.
idea.
Right.
And I have these words, but then some people sometimes will help me think about how to fix these words. Like the name Church Project for me, I didn't have a name for a church, but I'm like, I need the name of an organization under which a church would operate. So like Church Project for me was this umbrella name, like a holding name. Under it, I would come up with a church name, and then I'd come up with a nonprofit conglomerate name, which is Good City now.
Right.
And Church Project oversees a lot of it. And then I would come up with a network name, Church Project Network. And so like Church Project for me was never going to be a church name, but now it just stayed. And so, yeah, man, I mean, but it was a project all around the church.
Right.
So I'm like, that'll be a good holding name.
Right. And it just stuck. Well, like I think this is an important conversation. I've always wanted us to do a podcast on this aspect of communication at every different level. And like you're telling people to start with values and not vision, and then do the work, right? Do the work. You got to push some words around the page. You got to try to eliminate, like I do this in crafting messages. Like you try to, you don't need 12 words of what you can say in 2. There's a lot of guys that they have run-on sentences about what they want to do with their job. Or
you
their
called
company.
a sermon one day that you and I both heard. You're like, that was a word salad, is what you said.
Yes, a word salad. You just got people pitching words into a bowl and just shaking it around, throwing it out there, and they don't know what it means, and the people don't know what it means. And so you have to learn how to pick your words carefully and wisely. I also think of we want to change the way people see Christians in the church. Like that's the other phrase I think of.
Yeah. That was our first phrase.
And it's memorable because it's alliterated.
Well, that's helpful. Although Jesus had a lot of memorable words that weren't alliterated. Although I know that's, one of your deals.
That's one of my proclivities.
I get it. I like it. It works for you. No, I think that has some value. But like for me, when I did think, I've been in too many at other places like mission and vision and whatever meetings that I'm like, I want to fall on my own sword.
Yes.
I don't want to do that ever again. But I need to know what's our ultimate goal.
Yeah.
And so I want that would be like at least a vision, I guess close to vision. Every vision maybe is what we want. We want to change. That's what I want. I want things to be different. For who? I want to change the way people. So this is all I'm working with people here. That's all that matters in this world.
Right.
I want to change the way people see Christ and Christians and the church. Because if I just wanted to change the way people see Christ, well, I could maybe just get into a nonprofit organization like Good God Gospel. I could have done Good God Gospel, train people how to share the gospel.
Right.
But if I want to change the way they see Christians, well, then I have to set up a discipleship context whereby people's hearts are changing to follow Christ more.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to do that, well, that's in a local church context.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to change the way people in our community thought about churches. And I really wanted to change the way when people think of a church, I want them to go, oh, that's what a church should be. Mm-hmm. That's what a church should be doing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's how a church is.
Right.
Or when they think about Christians, I want them to go, that's what a Christian's supposed to be like. I didn't know a Christian before who lived like this.
Yeah.
But I especially want them to change the way they see Christ. I once saw Christ in this way, but now I do no longer. I mean, Paul used language like that. So we want to change the way people see Christ, Christians in the church. That is my ultimate mission that covers everything. Who are we? We are a church of house churches. Mm-hmm. What is a house church? It's a diverse discipleship community. What is house church? The 3 eDNA elements is distributed pastoral leadership. Like that's very important. I'm giving away pastoral leadership.
Yeah.
That's very different than most churches. They give away leadership, but not pastoral.
Yeah.
So we say distributed pastoral leadership, decentralized from primary, place, and priest. The first thing is for somebody to change, any pastor to go, I'm not the main guy. My name's not on a sign. It's not on our website. It's not on a billboard. Like decentralized. It's not all about what happens here. And then diverse discipleship communities. Mm-hmm. So like I just had to come up with the words for all these things. Otherwise, people wouldn't know what they meant. So if people can't read my basic, half a page, I could write down 3 or 4 of these phrases or
Right.
groups of sayings, and people would go, oh, I get it. I see what that is.
That's right.
And so I had to create it. I had to keep refining it until I got there. I had to say it over and over and over till everybody got it. And now I just sort of lightly manage it. I just sort of watch it from afar. I like I can sit on the top of a mountain and look down there and go, oh, they're doing great. Mm-hmm. But I may, if at some point I hear something that's not good, I'm like, I need to come down, like the farmer versus the rancher,
Right.
I mean, I start out as a farmer, man. I'm down there, feeding it, but now I'm sitting up here and I got a lot of other farmers that are really doing it, and I'm just here to support them. And it's my joy to watch people leading, flocks and herds of people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you really taught us to think like that. You taught our team to think in terms of shepherding flocks and not just being caught up in the weeds and in the down in the dirt and being distracted. Well, so you created these phrases early on that were born out of your values and born out of wanting to communicate them clearly. One of my axioms in speaking has always been, the smaller the room, the higher the stakes.
Oh, break that down.
Well, when you have less people in a room that you're speaking to, usually there's more decisions are being made. Like like you just came from a meeting, it was you and somebody else, and there were probably greater things at stake in that meeting than there were with 25 people.
Well, that's true.
So the smaller the room, the higher the stakes. And so early on, when you were sitting with people that you really wanted to believe in the vision, that you're in a room of 4 or 5 powerful people or people that can influence the direction of church project or what's next. How did you communicate in that setting? And how did you change those axioms? Did you protect them? Like I know people early on, like church planters, they have to meet with people that are in some ways more influential than they are, have more money than they have.
Yeah.
And they have to convince somebody that they should follow this vision. So when you're in a small room, what's the dynamics of communicating to people like that?
I will accept the small room, but our small rooms didn't have any powerful people in it, quote unquote. I had to then learn, like my small room became like a restaurant table.
Okay.
Because I endeavored to spend one-on-one time with everybody who came to our church as long as I could. And that was at a meal where Brooke would generally go with me, but she couldn't always because of the kids. But a lot of times she went to every small table we could go to together.
Wow.
But that small table was saying these phrases and having a conversation with people about these values. And so I did that over and over. I mean, I would say the same thing. I would have coffee, lunch, coffee, dinner. I mean, for months, years. Yeah. And like part of scaling is how much you have to communicate in the small rooms and how long you're going to have to do it. Like I don't have to do that now.
Right.
I sit at small tables, but for generally discipleship purposes, encouraging people, helping people through maybe helping a leader in our church. I sit with house church pastors a lot. But I'm not having to sit down to clarify the vision because now other people are doing that. Our place now gives a picture. I mean, you know it when you come here.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't having to paint a picture of what we were hoping to become. I was having to do that. So one-on-one coffees, me with a married couple or single people, lunches and dinners. I mean, those are my small rooms, and they weren't powerful people. I mean, I know some people want to start a church, maybe an organization too, but they want to start a church with like super powerful people behind. I actually didn't want to do that because usually those people, not always, but usually they're going to come with expectations attached.
An agenda, yeah, that's right.
And I get it because for them in their mind, there's some stewardship attached. Maybe that's true or not. But for me, I knew like a person who may be bringing some significant source of strength to this, like like money, influence, leadership, whatever, they may not get what I'm saying, and they may change it. I think there are a lot of pastors who have given up their original source of vision, values, principles, even language, because they're so desperate for some outside source of money or influence or power that they lost it. And you only have so much energy to do this so many times.
Right.
I mean, I like to say, please God, no, like if I planted another church, we helped plant a lot of churches.
Right.
But if I went and planted another church myself, it would be after he swallowed me with a whale and spit me up on shore.
That's right.
Like the energy it takes to start something out of nothing is almost not able to be duplicated. Like to do it again well, I mean, I really respect somebody who could do that again. I cannot imagine having to do it again. And so these people who have given up these great ideas that they built, and even this language, these words that they crafted, and then they let somebody outside source who didn't share their passion, their conviction, their vision, and who didn't come up with these words, they let somebody else. So I didn't want that influence in me. So it was harder to do. The difficulty lasted longer, but it protected the purity of it.
Wow. And how did you guard the values? I know there has been people that has come through your life that want to do that very thing you're talking about. They want to
100%.
They want to add to it or take away from it.
Totally.
And so how do you, as the leader of something brand new, how do you guard those values and what you're communicating in the face of, if you do it this way, we'll give you lots of money, or if we do it this way, we'll do you big favors? I mean, how do you guard? What do you do? What do you say to someone about how they guard that?
Well, I will say that has absolutely exactly like that happened. Exactly. Like people are like, if you will change Sundays, or if you will do house churches to small groups, or if house churches will become homogenous, or if we could do that, if you'll do Sundays like this, we'll come here and we bring a lot of money. I had a guy tell me he would give $1 million, one guy, if you will make this change, but it would have changed us.
Right.
And the only way that you don't buy into that is that your commitment to your convictions is deeper than your desire to be approved by people.
Wow.
My commitment to my convictions was deeper than my desire to be approved by people. And actually, my commitment to my convictions was even deeper than my desire to be successful. Because the likelihood of our failure was significant. I mean, 80% of church plants fail after 3 years. And of the ones that make it, the 20% that make it past 3 years, 80% of those don't have more than 200 people. I'm not calling that a failure. I'm not even calling closing a church down after 3 years a failure. If people were faithful to the Lord and served him with all they could, I think that was a success. But that's not what they started for. That's not what they wanted. And so for me, like, my commitment to my convictions was even greater than my desire to succeed. And so I wasn't willing to give up. Like Matt Chandler said in a small group of pastors that I heard many years ago, he said, if you're not careful, now he's my friend that I know personally, but I didn't know him personally then. But he said something that stuck with me. He said, if you're not careful, to church planners, he said, you're going to plant a church that a few years from now, you're not going to even want to be a part of. And I'm like, man, I'm not going to do all this for that. I'd rather go after it and fail than go after it and succeed, but it not be what I hoped it would be.
Right.
And so not that we're 100% of what I hope it would be, but we haven't compromised any of our values.
And in those moments when you're defending what God's placed in your heart to do, are you polite with people, like we're just not going to do that, or are you direct when you have outside influences coming at you? Like I'm trying to ask a question if we have church planners to know how to deal with outside influences trying to steal the vision. You ever had to be, were you polite to them, or did you have to be direct?
Well, I mean, I think You're using those words as if they exist always in contradiction.
Are you polite and direct?
I think that would be a more hopeful description.
Okay, all right.
I am direct and hopefully polite.
Okay.
I am clear.
Right.
Like I think if you're not clear about this, if you're not clear about it,
Right.
like you'll get eaten alive.
Yeah.
Like so I'm very clear and very direct. I really like the ways of Jesus. Like when Jesus was speaking to an opponent, someone who was in opposition to what he was called to do, I mean, I've never said to anybody, "Get behind me, Satan," but Jesus did
Right.
to one of his friends.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
if that's not polite, I mean, I've never been that impolite, but that's pretty direct, you know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man. I mean, I have just had to be very direct with people. I mean, for me, it can easily start with, this is who we're going to be and this is what we're going to do, and we're not going to do anything that compromises that. And I believe that what you are saying to me, you know, is going to change that. Are you asking me to change who we were created to be to accommodate your desires?
Yeah.
Or your convictions? Because this was birthed out of convictions starting when I was 15 years old, man. And I've been walking in this for decades.
Right.
God's put this in me. So should I move that to accommodate what you want in a local church so that I can get your money? I have had that conversation. And so I'm going to be clear about what this would do and what this person is asking me to do, and let them say, yes, I'm wanting you to do that. I mean, that's a really hard position to be in, but that's actually what's happening.
Wow.
But some people will do it unknowingly. So I would call the first person an opponent, right?
Sure.
Like you're opposing this. You're an enemy of this. And I'm going to speak to you differently than I would speak to somebody who innocently says, hey, we should
Right.
do this.
So good.
Or I feel very passionate about this.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the majority of it for me. Like we have trained our team to do this before, and we've actually written it down. Like when somebody brings us something about our church that would change our church, this is how we approach them. Like we have had language for this. I've written it down and given it to people. Yeah. We say, thank you for caring about your church. Like you'll recognize this as I speak about it now, but we'll say, thank you for caring about your church. I love that you care about it enough to be passionate about it and have ideas for it. We're not going to do what you've just brought to me, the idea you've brought to me. This is why we're not going to do it. But thank you for bringing the idea to me. Like if we say, hey, thanks, I'll get back to you, then they're going to build up hope. And they're going to be waiting. Right. And they're going to have, so like we're clear with words. Like we're kind, but we're clear. Like we won't, no matter what, you could be an opponent and an enemy, or you can be, with naivety or purity, bring an idea that would change us, but we will not compromise what God's called us to do. Yeah. There are enough places out there doing something very different that I guess they can accommodate you. Yeah. But for me, we're called to be a church of house churches, distribute pastoral leadership, decentralized from primary place and primary pastors, live in diverse discipleship community, have Sunday gatherings, house church, and ministry partnerships. I mean, we're here to change the way people see Christ, Christians in the church. There's no way I'm moving away from any of this because somebody likes or doesn't like it.
Wow. I think people need to hear that. I think people, you're right. I think guys sell out along the way for money or
they're desperate.
Favors or what they're like, they'll take anything, But I think that raw commitment is to stay true to what God's placed in your heart is a valuable lesson for everyone who's leading anything.
Totally.
A restaurant, a business, a church.
Yeah.
You have to stay true to it, or people will try to go, why can't we be more like such and such? Why don't we do it more like that? You're like, that's not our vision. That's not our values. That's right. And let's talk about, Church Project blew up and you moved out of Timberlock. And
Timberlock was our first Sunday gathering location.
First Sunday gathering, a warehouse in Timberlock, and then you moved.
Sawdust was our second. Just for people who were
That's right. It was the old Kroger building.
That's right.
On Sawdust, and you moved into Sawdust, the second location. What do you remember changing inside of you in terms of how you communicated in that large of a room? Like everything now is incredibly big, and in terms of how you talked about Church Project, how you preached. What changed from the size of Timberlock to the size of Sawdust, what changed for you as a communicator? How you prepared, how you delivered it, any of those things?
I don't think how I prepare for a sermon has changed, because I'm turning the wrench on a text. I'm just hand tightening down, and then I get the wrench out, and I keep doing it. And I have my process by which I filter through a passage of Scripture. I mean, a passage of Scripture filters, for me, it goes through probably 10 different filters. Like, it's purified when it gets out.
Yeah, so good.
I mean, it's like, I'm not calling Scripture dirty on the other side. I'm just saying to get the Scripture into a sermon, for me, passes through like all these different filters.
Yeah.
And by the time I get to the other side, hopefully it's pure and potent in a way that it's turned into a sermon. Like when Paul told Timothy to preach the word, right? Like he wasn't saying, he didn't say just read the Scriptures. Like he was telling him, turn the Scriptures into a sermon.
Right.
And so, like, why? I'm taking the word and I'm helping explain it and apply it to people. Like you said, correct, rebuke, and encourage. Mm-hmm. So I'm taking this word and I'm correcting, rebuking, and encouraging, and I'm being patient, as he said to do.
Yeah.
Like, so then I need to know, well, what does patience mean? He told Timothy, be patient when you teach, but also, like, you're calling them to something else, correct, rebuke, and encourage.
Yeah.
So then I need to know our people. But it's very different when I know 40 people in the room. Personally, I sat down at Starbucks and Cheesecake Factory with them all.
Right.
Taqueria Ronda's, wherever we could go that I hoped they would buy because I had no money.
Right.
But I would buy it if I needed to. I'd always offer, by the way, and often would buy myself. So when I'm in a room with a few people, I can preach in some ways with more freedom because I know everybody there. But when you're in a room now with hundreds or thousands, like, I do not know everybody in the room.
Right.
And so my sermon is, I'm prepared. I'm looking at a passage in the same way, but my apologetics filter is a little bit different.
Okay.
Because now I have to assume culturally what people understand about this rather than personally.
Wow. Okay.
Because
really
when you have a small group of people and you know almost all of them, like, I'm preaching to them, I know apologetically what they understand, theologically where they are, how far I can push them, practically how they're living this out. I know that. But when I get in a room where it's beyond a social dynamic of people I can know.
Yeah.
And so, it's that way now, and it likely always will be unless something cataclysmic happens. Like, I've had to move from same filters, except one or two filters are my application filter is different and my apologetics filter is different. When it was small, 40, 100, 200 people, I know what the people in the room believe. And I know how they're living. Now I don't know. So I have to take like subsets, straw polls. Like, that's why I still have lunch and coffee with people. I think the best preaching is informed by having lunch and coffee with your people.
Absolutely. That's right.
And so time in the Word and lunch and coffee with your people. And so I know our people generally because I'm spending time with them still throughout the week. You know, Monday is generally staff days. Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm generally with people in our church. And then Thursday, I'm working on sermon and projects and other writing. And so start with 7 other stuff. And so I still get a view of what our people are thinking or feeling or believing or practicing, but I have to apply it differently because I don't know who's in the room. Does that make sense?
It's total sense. And how do you determine what the application is going to be? Are you thinking of one specific type of person that's out there? Are you trying to think as many different people? Like, in any given week, how do you choose an application for any text you're working with?
I think the cool thing is, I like to say a sermon creates tension between heaven and earth. A proper sermon creates tension between heaven and earth. Here is what heaven has said in his word.
Right.
And here's how we're living it down on earth.
Right.
But also, here are our questions or our struggles. And so my application comes from getting to the common human struggle with this.
Right.
Like,
so good.
What do we not understand about it? Because it is complex. What do we not like about it? Because it doesn't conform to our flesh.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what is hard to practice here for the common human being. And so, really, I mean, at the end of the day, even though theologically we may be at different places, spiritual maturity, we're all still, we have the ability to take up the flesh. The flesh is trying to get to the same thing, a lack of submission to whatever God is teaching us in the Word here. So I'm going to come at the application of this for what is your opposition to this in your flesh?
Yeah.
You got to lay it down. And so
right.
that's how we're preaching to everybody. But the apologetics for me
Right.
is where it's more varied.
In what way? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, there are people who have already gone through enough scripture, enough maturity with Jesus to now they're not wrestling with acceptance or objection to this anymore. They may need more understanding,
Right.
or more application to practice it, but they're not wrestling with acceptance. So generally people who have been walking with Jesus for a while who come to our church, because I mean, you know, we don't look like a church building. We don't feel like a normal church. If you're coming here, you're wanting to,
Right.
you know, you're passionate for Jesus, purity in the scriptures, whatever. So church people come here, their objections to the word are low. Until they know us, their filter may be fine theologically, but their objections to the word are low. But if somebody's not a believer, or they came in a third of our people are unbelievers.
Yeah.
A third of our people grew up in church and they've been out of it a long time. I don't want any more of that.
Yeah.
And a third of our people are like, I just want the word and I am starving at my local church. Nobody's feeding me the word. Nobody's taking me to new pastors. And so we're sort of broken down, I think, approximately in those thirds. And so the third with low objections, the apologetics they're not actually even for them. Maybe just to reinforce as they share with their unbelieving friends. But the other third, hey, I've resisted Jesus for a long time because my church sucked so bad and hurt me growing up, or was so legalistic, or didn't represent Jesus. Like, there's some apologetic for them. And then for the unbeliever, that's a different apologetic.
Right.
So I'm actually coming at almost every point, there's an apologetic that hits all three people. It's the believer so they can share it with their lost friends. It hits the detached from the body for a long time, believer or not believer, not real sure, I'm not there, not. And then it hits the unbeliever who's not yet convinced and still resisting. So my preaching has had to refine those filters.
Wow, that's super powerful. So, like, when you do that on any given verse on any given Sunday, are you doing are you saying three different type of application, or is it one line? When you talk about crafting lines and words and whatnot, are those three different applications? Are you thinking, I'm going to say this?
You mean three different apologetics?
I mean, three different apologetics.
Yeah.
Are you
Sometimes,
thinking, I'm going to say this to someone who's not a believer? And someone
some points don't need a super developed apologetic, like a defense or explanation of why this is true. And why what you believe to be true is not true on this point. Some points don't need a super developed apologetic that would happen for all three groups of people. So it just depends on the point.
Okay.
You know, sometimes people who are listening to this, they're not objecting to it, but they have a lot of friends who object to this right here. And I need to help them know how to talk to their friends as they're discipling people and having gospel conversations. So there are points where the believer needs an apologetic.
Right.
There are points where they don't really need that. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm filtering through that in my mind as I'm working through a passage. The apologetic is one filter that this passage of Scripture is going to pass through until it gets to the end. And I know.
Yeah.
Like, I actually know. Like, sometimes I'll, at the end of Thursday, Brick will be like, how much do you have left? I'm like, about an hour and a half. I got about 4 hours. I wasn't able to work on the sermon much this week or whatever. Like, I almost know.
Wow.
Sometimes now I'll read a passage of Scripture and I'll know exactly how long it'll take me. I mean, I'm going to go through all my steps. I have all my filters. I mean, it's going to be done in the same way. I can just tell how difficult the passage of Scripture is going to be to pass through all these filters. I don't know it yet, what's going to happen. I can just see it, and I'm like, that's an 8-hour passage right there.
What makes something an 8-hour passage for you? Like, what is
the
it?
Complexities of going through the filters. I mean, one of the filters would be contextual explanation. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
if something's like, I do not allow women to braid their hair or wear jewelry, I'm like, oh, no.
Here we go.
I'm like, I'm all for that, man. I'm for wearing makeup, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, I said something I used to say things no way I should say. Like one time we were teaching through, I think, 1 Corinthians, and it was a lot about, I don't know, where allow women to wear makeup or whatever. And I'm like, why is it that the ugliest people go to the denominations where they don't let them wear makeup? You know what I'm saying?
Great.
I mean, it was horrible. I shouldn't have said it. Somebody was like, I finally brought a friend who came from that place. And I'm like, yeah, I think I saw her,
Sorry. Yeah, I think I know. Yeah.
I'll never see her again. I mean, I felt bad about that. I shouldn't say stuff like that, even now. But, I'm talking about what I used to do. It's funny,
So
but
funny.
it's wrong. But, yeah, man. So, like, contextual explanations of things.
Okay.
That's a big part of when I'm like, this is a contextually difficult, like explaining the context or explaining the application or explaining the opposition or the apologetic. Or how this links together to the gospel. Like how does this show us more of the gospel? Like God's rescue from our brokenness here and his redemption.
Yeah.
Like every verse does that for me. And so the gospel is a filter through which every verse is passing.
Yeah.
You
Really
know,
good.
God's holiness, our brokenness against this, his grace to restore us, and how he now calls us to live on the other side. Like every verse is doing that. So some of that's super clear and some of it takes a moment.
Right. Now, I get it. What's easier for you to do? Are narratives easier than epistles?
Now we're in where you want to go. I mean, we can't pull. I mean, you're like, yeah. Last question I'm going to give you until we get back to scaling comms, and then we'll be done. Because I know Dave cannot get away from preaching conversation. Man, I love a narrative.
I do too.
I mean, I can find application narrative, context and narrative, gospel and narrative. I love that. I love it.
I do too.
But I mean, I don't despise preaching through. Like I love preaching through Galatians now because it's super important and Paul's really clear. But
Yeah.
it's easier for me to preach a narrative.
Yeah.
I will say that.
No, me too. I love a good Old Testament narrative, particularly. So, let's talk about scaling. We get back to scaling.
Oh, the whole purpose. Of
Yeah,
this
that's right.
Podcast. Yeah, thanks.
The second location was the old Kroger on Sawdust. Then we went from there to here to Legends, the old athletic center, and the rooms are exponentially bigger. We're reaching more people than we ever had before. And so, what has changed from that place in Sawdust to here, in terms of how you communicate vision? Like, let's say we have a church planner that's listening to this, and they've gone from having 50 people to 300. And like we said early on this podcast, you can't stay the same. You can't speak as a 100-person church to 300 or 400 or 500 people. So, what do you take with you? What did you have to learn?
Well, I think two things
to get into these rooms.
One demarcation of changing your communication is when it is embedded in your culture. So that may not happen for 1,000 or 2,000 people, or it may happen at 100 people. So one of the lines of demarcation is when your language has deeply embedded into your culture. Here's how you know it's deeply embedded into your culture. If you could take away the founder and it would all continue the same. Or if the founder tried to change it, I like to say here, if I try to change any of this language, if I try to change any of the stuff that the language describes, they'd run me off, man.
Right.
It's so deeply embedded into the culture. And so you change language when something deeply embeds into a culture. Or you have to change language at sizes. I do think there's a size, though, where that you pass where it's all the same. And I don't know what number that is. Is it 1,000 people in a room or 500 people in a room? But when you get past any possibility of knowing a great degree of the population in the room personally, when you like, I can know people personally who know these people personally. But when I get past the ability to know all those people personally, my communication has changed, and it's going to remain the same. I have an awareness now, though, of So culture changes, criticism of culture changes.
Yeah.
And when you become more visible, like your words have more possible negative impact because, now people that will never be a part of this culture will now hear you in another state or another nation.
Right.
When they're online from YouTube or podcast or, Facebook or wherever they are, all these platforms together, I mean, it's a lot of people. I mean, there are other people I know, friends of mine have way more, but mine is way more than it used to be and more than many.
Right.
And so I think another change, you got the culture, and then that's not as much a number as it is time and different approaches. Second is a number of people that you can know personally in the room. But the third thing that affects a change in scaling is people who will never come and be a part of your culture. Because there are people I'll never know personally here who walk into this room, but the culture's affecting them.
Right.
But there are people who will never touch the culture here that my words are also affecting. And so that has affected me too. But I got to make sure that I'm not preaching to them in a way that loses the people in the room.
Right.
And I think a lot of guys do that.
I do too.
When their reach starts to grow, then they start preaching to those people. So I think
Yeah.
you have to preach to the people in the room
So
with an
good.
eye. Now, here's what Paul said about that.
That's right.
And when he was talking about exercising spiritual gifts, he was like, don't you know? Aren't you aware that there are people in the room who are not going to understand you if you're all speaking in tongues?
Yeah.
He's like, so you have to have a consideration of the people who may come in the room who don't know what you're doing. So for me, I'm preaching to our people with a slight awareness that there are people who are watching
Right.
who will never know our culture here.
Right.
But they may benefit from the value of the things we're saying. That's the third transition.
No, I think that's right. And I think when a speaker, a communicator doesn't know their values in the pulpit, they end up becoming a caricature of themselves.
How do you mean?
Well,
That's
I
good.
mean that
I agree with you.
They instead of speaking to the room, they start trying to be something that'll appeal to whoever on Instagram or
And the room
whatever.
feels really weird.
And the room feels weird, and they become a caricature. And instead of being authentic, they
Yeah.
portray being authentic, right? Instead of being direct or honest, they portray it, and that's where you get all these pithy speakers that are over energetic and they have a lot of
It's
energy.
not
They
real
don't
in
say
a room.
anything.
It doesn't work in a room.
Right, it's a cartoon. They become a
Yeah.
cartoon of themselves.
Yeah.
If they don't keep what you're talking about in mind. And one of the things I noticed and that we've talked about is that you still have to exercise an amount of restraint in how you communicate. Right? I mean, we talked about this just at lunch today about just showing restraint. And
Yeah.
is that purposeful? Do you feel like, I need to pull back on this, so in order to communicate better, I need to hold back part of this
Sure.
myself?
The communication has to work for the room.
Yeah.
I mean, because these are the people who are here.
Right.
And so I have to first communicate for them.
Yeah.
And if it feels weird in the room, like I'm communicating to a camera
Yeah.
and using the room,
Yeah.
I mean, that feels wrong.
It feels wrong.
But like I have a couple of friends who, like, they've been communicating to their room for a very long time, and now through the camera, their audience has just exploded.
Yeah.
But they're not communicating for the camera. They care about those people, but they're still communicating primarily to their room.
To the room, yeah.
And so I think the three stages of scaling in preaching, we talked about communicating other things, vision, whatever,
Yeah.
but in preaching would be until it's embedded in your culture.
Yeah.
And then when you get past the size where you can know everybody somewhat personally, and then when your audience will never be a part of your culture by being present here, they're remote.
Yeah.
So I think those are the three preaching aspects. We talked about communication aspects.
Yeah.
I think that's good. I think we could wrap that up.
No,
What
I
you
think
got?
I think it's really good. I think that the words of Paul to be ready to preach in season, out of season, really summarize this whole podcast. So we're really talking about, we talked about starting. We talked about how you hold on to the culture, how you stay, and then how you scale, how you keep going. I would say to anybody who's a communicator, you just have to keep going, and you have to keep learning, And one of my principles is just because you're good in one room doesn't mean you'll be good in every room.
That's really
that's
good.
what happens.
Wow.
Is that guys get a lot of equity in a room, and they think, well, all my people here love me. Why wouldn't they love me on TV? It's because it doesn't translate, you know. And that's what happens to a lot of these guys that end up trying to have preaching shows. You know, they have all this equity in a room, but it doesn't translate into other rooms.
Yeah.
And so I think what you're talking about is really thinking about being intentional and showing some restraint, and you keep preaching to the room and you keep applying, doing application and doing apologetics.
Yeah.
And if you keep doing that, what you say is like every Sunday is you just try to click the dial. You try to I always say you try to bring people one step closer to following Jesus. That's what we're trying to do in communication.
Well, hey, I like the conversation.
I do too.
It's just fun to have, and
So fun.
we'll do a whole one on preaching at some point, just to make you happy, bro.
That'd be
I want
fantastic.
to do that too. And you have a lot to say about preaching. I can't wait to have that one.
That'll be a fun
at
one.
some point. Thanks for having this with me. Hey, thanks for watching the Rethink and Return podcast. We're glad that you joined on these. Here's all we ask you to do. Just like it, share it, subscribe to it. It's the only way anybody's going to know about it. If it has value for you, maybe it'll have value for them too. You're great. You're loved. See you soon.